The story began as a seemingly ordinary crime. In essence, this case had a high chance of being shelved by the police and simply gathering dust. However, things turned out quite differently. What initially seemed like a mundane case eventually became a tangled web of truly incredible events. It is this very web that we will be unraveling today. The story begins in Los Angeles, California, the second largest city in the United States and the largest in the state. I believe everyone has heard something about this city, so it does not need any further introduction. On the evening of May 12, 2003, the Los Angeles police were called to Case Avenue. A young woman's body lay on the side of the road near house 6751. Her mother stood nearby, hysterically screaming in Spanish, "Oh God, they killed her." The girl had been shot twice in the face. The police quickly cordoned off the street and began questioning potential witnesses. First and foremost, this was, of course, the mother of the deceased, but she claimed she saw nothing. She only heard a couple of gunshots, and when she went outside, she saw her daughter already lying on the curb in blood. The neighbors of the deceased told the same story. They only heard the gunshots and did not see the killer. However, they did note one interesting detail. Before the girl was killed, a black Chevrolet Malibu was seen driving in circles on the street. No one living on that street recognized the car, so it was reasonable to assume it was connected to the murder. Based on this, no immediate leads were found, and it was only when the police learned the name of the deceased that the first theories began to emerge. The girl's name was Martha Puebla, and she was only 16 years old. Why was her name already familiar to the police? It turned out that another murder had occurred right there, near Martha's house, about 6 months earlier. At that time, specifically on the evening of November 27, 2002, Martha was lying in bed, ready to fall asleep. At one point, her friend Sophia knocked on the window of her bedroom. Sophia invited Martha to go for a walk with her and her boyfriend, Christian Vargas, who was waiting for them in the car outside. While Martha was deciding whether to go, a man in a hoodie approached Christian's car. Suddenly, gunshots rang out. The frightened girls hid in Martha's house. Only when they were sure the shooter had left did they cautiously approach the car. Christian's body was riddled with bullets, and he died before the ambulance arrived. The police arrived and separated Martha and Sophia for questioning. Sophia stated that when the girls heard the shots, Martha screamed it as Paps. Paps was the nickname of Martha's ex-boyfriend, 19-year-old Jose Ledesma. He was a member of the Violent Boys gang, one of the most notorious gangs in Los Angeles. Martha denied telling her friend that Jose Ledesma was the shooter. It's hard to blame her for this. After all, telling a friend you know who the killer is one thing, but telling the police is another. In the latter case, you become a high-priority target for the gang. The gang always sought to take revenge on police informants. Martha was extremely cautious in her conversations with the police. Nevertheless, the detectives believed that, in this situation, the guy was already wanted by the police in connection with the murder of someone named Enrique Acosta, which had occurred 4 days earlier. The connection between the two murders, the murder of Enrique Acosta and Christian Vargas, was further strengthened when police found shell casings from the same gun at both crime scenes. Soon, a search was conducted at Jose Ledesma's house. The guy wasn't home, but a 9mm pistol, the same type used to kill Enrique Acosta and Christian Vargas at Martha Puebla's house, was found, along with several letters from prison from members of the Violent Boys gang. The police had information that Jose Ledesma was not acting alone. His accomplice was another gang member, Mario Catalan. Soon, these two, Jose Ledesma and Mario Catalan, were arrested. They managed to escape to Mexico, but after a fight in a hotel, the Mexican police detained them. Later, the Mexican authorities learned that Ledesma and Catalan were wanted in Los Angeles, and as a result, they were sent back to the United States. During the interrogation, Jose Ledesma denied any involvement in Christian Vargas' murder. However, the detective then said that the police had a witness. The detective produced a sheet with 6 photographs of similar-looking individuals, including one of Jose Ledesma. Jose's photo was circled, and below it was written, "This is the guy who shot Christian near my house." Signed, Martha Puebla. To this, Ledesma replied that he did not know any Martha, but he was lying, as he was her ex-boyfriend. Some time later, preliminary hearings were held, during which Martha Puebla testified. However, in court, she stated that she did not see the person who shot Christian Vargas near her house. So, where did these contradictory statements come from? On one hand, she circled Jose Ledesma's photo as the shooter, but on the other hand, in court, she said she did not see the shooter. Well, the photo story was a police trick. In reality, Martha did not point to Jose Ledesma's photo as the killer. From the beginning, she told the police that she did not know who was the shooter. However, the police used a ruse to break Jose Ledesma and told him that Martha had given statements against him, which was not true. In other words, the police simply set Martha up in front of Jose Ledesma by telling him that she had identified him. Now, about 6 months later, Martha Puebla was shot dead outside her home. It is not hard to see the connection, given that the detectives lied to Jose Ledesma, saying that Martha had identified him as the shooter. Martha Puebla's murder could well have been revenge from the violent boys gang, a warning to anyone else who might cooperate with the police against the gang members. This was the most obvious motive the police saw in the murder of the 16-year-old Martha Puebla. Continuing to work at the scene of 16-year-old Martha's murder, detectives discovered a broken phone. It turned out to belong to Martha's friend, who was with her at the time of the murder but ran away after the shots, dropping the phone on the asphalt. This person was an incredibly valuable witness to the event for the police. When he was finally found, he told them that he and Martha were sitting on the side of the road that evening. At one point, a black Chevrolet Malibu stopped nearby. A man got out and approached Martha. He asked her, "What is your name?" To which the girl replied, "Martha, you know me." After that, the man pulled out a gun and fired a couple of shots at Martha's face. Seeing this, the friend who was with the girl at the time ran away. It was important for the police that he had seen the killer. Martha's friend described him as a Latino man between the ages of 19 and 25, with short dark hair and a mustache. Based on the witness's description, a detailed sketch was created, which became the basis for the investigation. Initially, of course, they looked for someone matching this description among the members of the violent boys gang, but too many of its members fit the description. At this point, it's worth noting that the guy against whom Martha allegedly testified, Jose Ledesma, was not arrested alone. With him was his alleged accomplice in the murder, a man named Juan Catalan. After 3 months of intense investigation, the police finally identified a specific suspect in Martha Puebla's murder. Juan Catalan, the younger brother of Jose Ledesma's accomplice, Juan Catalan. Why did the police focus on him? Firstly, the most obvious reason: he had a strong motive to protect his brother from the information Martha could provide to the police. Secondly, he lived just a few houses away from the crime scene. And thirdly, he bore a striking resemblance to the composite sketch. It's clear that the sketch had many conditional elements. Simply resembling it was not enough. But there was another, more compelling argument. The witness to the murder, the guy who was with Martha at the time of the shooting, identified Juan Catalan as the shooter. This was more than enough grounds for his arrest. However, there was a nuance. Unlike his brother Mario, Juan Catalan was not a member of the violent boys gang. Unlike his brother, he led a relatively decent life. He had a wife and a daughter and earned money working in his father's carpentry shop. When Juan was younger, he had problems with the law, largely due to his older brother, who started engaging in illegal activities at the age of 15. These were mainly thefts. Juan, at one point, asked his brother to take him along on a job. That night, they went to steal car stereos, but the night was not very successful for the brothers, as they were arrested by a police patrol. For Mario, this was not unusual, but for Juan, this arrest was his first. After that, Mario and Juan spent 3 months in jail. This did not stop Mario. He continued to commit various crimes and even became a member of the violent boys gang. For Juan, one arrest was enough, and he decided to stay away from crime. He started a family and got a job working for his father. He lived an ordinary life, at least until Martha Puebla's murder. Now, considering that he was identified by the only witness to the crime, Juan Catalan was arrested on August 12, 2003. The detectives already had strong evidence against Juan Catalan, but, of course, a confession would have been much more valuable. However, no matter how much the detectives pressured Juan during the interrogations, the guy refused to admit his involvement in Martha Puebla's murder.
You guys have the wrong person. You're literally identical to this. That's not me. It sure looks a lot like you. That's not me.
Well, could a confession be expected? Of course not. The chances of getting one were slim from the start. Juan Catalan was eventually sent to a maximum security prison pending trial. The prosecution against him was taken up by prosecutor Beth Silverman. This made things even worse for the guy because, by that time, this woman had not lost a single case. Moreover, she was known in the corridors as the sniper. Why the sniper? Because in all the cases she handled, Beth Silverman secured the death penalty for the defendant. Moreover, the defendant, Juan Catalan, also had the problem that he couldn't find a lawyer. There were several reasons for this. Firstly, no one believed in his innocence, and secondly, few lawyers wanted to go up against Beth Silverman in court and take on a seemingly losing case. It was only after a couple of weeks after the arrest that Juan's family managed to find a lawyer who agreed to defend him. And even then, he agreed only after talking to Juan himself and agreed only because he believed in the guy's innocence. This lawyer's name was Todd Melnick. Upon starting his work, Melnick saw only one way for Juan to avoid the death penalty, to prove that he had an alibi. He asked Juan where and with whom he was on the evening of May 12, the day of Martha Puebla's murder. By this point, 4 months had passed, making it difficult for Juan to remember that specific day. However, his wife had a much better memory. She reminded Juan that on May 12, he and the daughter were at a baseball game of the local team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. The lawyer asked Juan's wife to try to find the tickets from that game. After 4 months, this was no easy task, but the woman managed to do it. However, this proved little, as it was impossible to prove that Juan specifically attended the game with those tickets. Those tickets could have belonged to anyone. Nevertheless, they had some value, as they could determine which seats Juan and his daughter were in. The next step for the lawyer was to contact the stadium administrator where the game took place. The goal was to find people who were sitting near Juan that evening to confirm that he was at the game. The seats near where Juan was supposedly sitting were sold as season tickets. This meant that the stadium administrator had the contact information for the people who bought those season tickets. Melnick managed to contact 3 such individuals, but none of them were sure if they saw Juan at the game. All of them refused to testify in favor of the guy. Then the lawyer decided to try something else. The stadium administration agreed to provide Melnick with videotapes of that game. There was a slim hope that Juan might appear in the background of the footage. Melnick spent almost a week reviewing the tapes, but the chances were slim from the start. Spotting and identifying one specific person among 50,000 was impossible. As expected, the lawyer did not see his client in the footage. It seemed pointless to look for him in such a crowd, but what else could be done if Juan was indeed innocent? This was one of the few chances to prove it, but no miracle happened. What else could at least indirectly attest to the man's presence at the stadium? It would be if he had bought something there and paid by card. Well, Juan did tell the lawyer that he bought ice cream for his daughter at the stadium. But, to his now regret, he paid in cash. Therefore, there was no bank record of his purchase at the stadium. Meanwhile, the trial was less than a month away. He faced the death penalty, and the lawyer still had no solid evidence proving Juan's presence at the baseball game on the night of Martha Puebla's murder. This is where the truly incredible thing happened, which is the highlight of this story. The wife of attorney Melnick was a big fan of the comedy series Curb Your Enthusiasm. The new 4th season of the show was about to be released. Melnick's wife was reading information about her favorite series online. During this, she learned that one of the episodes of the new season was filmed in the spring of 2003, including at the Los Angeles Dodgers Stadium. She told her husband about it. Melnick contacted the stadium administration again, and incredibly, the filming took place on May 12, the very day Juan was supposedly at the stadium with his daughter. Then Melnick contacted HBO. They also confirmed that a few minutes of the 6th episode of the 4th season were indeed filmed at the baseball stadium. In the episode, the main character and creator of the series, Larry David, was rushing to a long-awaited baseball game but got stuck in terrible traffic, making him late for the game. The only way for him to make it to the game on time was to use the HOV lane, a dedicated lane for vehicles with 2 or more passengers. So, the character needed a passenger to use this lane, but where could he find one? In the episode, he found a solution. He picked up the least attractive prostitute, and they went to the baseball game together. The filming then continued at the stadium. Attorney Melnick asked HBO to review the footage from the stadium that day, but they refused, stating that the company could not release the footage before the episode aired, and waiting for its release would take at least 6 months. Then attorney Melnick directly contacted the main actor and creator of the series, Larry David. Only with his help did HBO agree to show what they had filmed at the stadium on May 12, 2003, in their office. There wasn't much footage, only about half an hour. Moreover, the camera mainly focused on the main character, Larry David. There were very few wide shots showing other people, and what were the chances that among the 50,000 people at the stadium, someone other than the actors would be clearly visible in the shots? Frankly, none. According to the episode's plot, the main character, Larry, thought he had lousy seats. At one point, he noticed his friend, who had much better seats, and went down the staircase to him, hoping to sit next to him. But his friend refused. Throughout this time, the camera followed Larry. Then he goes back up the stairs to his lousy seat. At this moment, something happens. A random fan in a white Dodgers jersey with the number 27 appears in the frame. His appearance blocks Larry, automatically making the shot unusable for the episode. The man who accidentally appeared in the frame is holding a little girl by the hand. Then he turns around to take his seat. While reviewing this footage, Attorney Melnick suddenly jumped up from his chair and shouted, "That's him. That's him." He rewound the tape. The attorney confirmed that the man in the footage was indeed his client, Juan Catalan, with his daughter. But that wasn't all. They found a couple more shots, where one was clearly visible. What were the chances of these events unfolding, the show being filmed on that very day and one accidentally appearing in the frame at a stadium with tens of thousands of people? Practically none, but it happened, and it gave Juan an alibi for the time of the murder he was accused of. That same day, Todd Melnick called Juan and said, "Dude, you are on tape. We did it." Then there was the trial, but thanks to the brilliant work of the attorney, the outcome was far from what many initially expected.
This man would be facing the death penalty if he hadn't, by the grace of God, gotten Dodger tickets from someone the day before and invited these people, got caught on video from that HBO show. You heard the tape of the interview with Detective Pinner.
It is clearly a one-witness ID case. However, the one witness in this case is extremely credible, has no motive to lie, and made a composite drawing with a composite artist that is strikingly similar to the defendant's appearance.
I don't have any doubt that eyewitness attempted to be credible, but he observed this murder on a darkened residential street under obviously the most traumatic of circumstances.
She started talking and talking and talking, and I didn't understand one word she said. Todd's sitting to my left, and he leans over, and then he says, "It's over." And I said, "What?"
That same day, Juan Catalan was released from custody. A couple of days later, the attorney, giving an interview, noted an interesting fact. If Juan had not gone to that game and stayed home, he would not have had an alibi and would likely have ended up in a death row cell. After his release, Juan watched all the episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's no surprise that he calls it his favorite show. By the way, this series is still airing today. In mid-2004, Juan filed a lawsuit against the Los Angeles police for not properly investigating his alibi. The civil trial lasted 3 years and was only resolved in 2007. The court ultimately awarded Juan $320,000 in compensation. In the end, thanks to an incredible coincidence, everything turned out well for this guy. But there is still one unresolved question in this story: were those who actually killed Martha Puebla ever found? The investigation into her case resumed only a year after the girl's murder, as until then, the police believed they had already caught the criminal by arresting Juan Catalan. The investigation then focused on Jose Ledesma, a member of the violent boys gang who killed Christian Vargas outside Martha Puebla's house. Recall that the police told Jose Ledesma that Martha had testified against him, which she did not do out of fear of the gang. Several Spanish-speaking detectives listened to the recordings of phone calls made by Jose Ledesma from prison. He spoke in a mix of street slang, Spanish, and English, making it difficult to decipher his conversations. However, this was partially successful. Of particular interest was a phone call made by Jose Ledesma a few days before Martha Puebla's murder. In it, Jose Ledesma told his acquaintance, "You know the bitch who lives near my house. Her name starts with M. I need her to disappear. I have big problems because of her. Don't get hot, do everything calmly, and don't get caught, dude." The person Jose Ledesma said all this to on the phone was another member of the violent boys gang, Jose Caro Rubios. Then another event occurred that affected the course of this story. Members of the violent boys gang killed two police officers. As a result, the authorities took serious action against the gang. An operational task force was created to combat the gang, consisting of over 1,000 police officers. During the operation, more than $1 million in cash, 75 units of firearms, and more than 200 kg of drugs were confiscated from the gang. Additionally, more than 30 members of the gang were arrested on various charges, including Jose Caro Rubios, the person suspected of killing Martha Puebla at the request of Jose Ledesma. In January 2008, 5 years after the girl's murder, Jose Ledesma made a deal with the police. To avoid the death penalty, he pleaded guilty to the murders of Enrique Acosta and Christian Vargas, as well as instigating the murder of Martha Puebla. However, Jose Caro Rubios and two other members of the gang pleaded guilty to the direct murder of Martha Puebla. All these individuals, including Jose Ledesma's accomplice, Mario Catalan, Juan Catalan's brother, were sentenced to life imprisonment. In 2008, the family of the murdered girl filed a lawsuit against the Los Angeles police because the police lied to Jose Ledesma that Martha had identified him as the killer, thereby setting her up with the gang. The court acknowledged that the detectives had acted negligently in this regard, but did not hold the detective fully responsible for the girl's death. The family of the murdered girl ultimately won the lawsuit, but the court's decision sounded like a mockery. The court awarded the family a compensation of $1.